Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a moment, I'm going to be walking my happy butt over to the futon to check out the Shudder original, Rita. Rita tells the story of a young girl in Guatemala who escapes her abusive father, only to find herself in a worse situation at a state-run facility. She makes friends with some of the girls that are in this facility, and they all decide to get together and escape. This film is also really interesting because not only is it a true story, or it's based off of a true story, it is also the first time that Hollywood and Guatemala have worked together to make a film. So I find that kind of intriguing. So you know what, guys? It is enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on. It is time for me to get over to the futon because, of course, as always, Haku is waiting on me to get over there, so it's time for me to stop jibber-jabbering on and get over to the futon to check out the Shudder original, Rita. Just getting done watching Rita, and guys, this was a really good movie, but there are some things I want to prepare you for. Now, normally I do negatives and positives, but I really don't have anything negative to say about this film, but I do want to prepare you for a very touchy subject matter of this movie. Now, this film presents itself as kind of a dark fantasy or a fairy tale. And I think the movie makers decided to go that route because this film deals with a lot of very dark subject matter and the fact that this movie is based on true events. Now, I don't know if all of these events happen at the same time or if this is just kind of different stories being put together. But it is told as kind of a fairy tale. And I could see where somebody would find this, you know, not necessarily the best way to present this subject matter because it's so touchy, and would find it, I wouldn't say necessarily offensive, but a little too lighthearted for the way that this film is made. I can definitely see where somebody could say, hey, I think that this movie should have portrayed the exact events the way they happen to really have the impact that it needs. Now, I feel that this film went in the way it did by telling it more as a fairy tale like it does in more of a fantasy, dark fantasy realm, is because it makes it a little bit easier on the viewer to digest exactly what they're seeing on the screen in front of them. Because this film goes, again, into some very dark areas, and I don't really want to dive in too much into what the subject and what the events are in this film, not just because of spoilers, because let me tell you guys, it does go into some areas that I would get in trouble with the old YouTubes if I go in a little too deep into some of this. So just to prepare you for the fact that yes, this movie goes into some very dark areas and does some subject matter that we do not want to see kids in. Plain and simple. Alright, now that being said, let's talk about more of the positives in just how this film is presented. As I said, I like the way that it was done in this fairy tale way. I thought it made the subject matter a lot easier to digest. I also thought the acting in this film was outstanding. I do not know, I'm not familiar with any of the young women that were in this film. They are not from the United States, so I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with their work, but they did excellent jobs. There was not a moment in this film where I felt like I was being taken out of it because of an inexperienced actor. All of these young ladies do an outstanding job delivering this story. Now, the pacing of the film is a little uneven. It does feel like it slows down a little bit in the middle of it, but it is also starting to build and tell a story. One might say that it is a slight slow burn, but I don't feel it necessarily was because it really keeps you intrigued on how everything is progressing. Now, this film is on Shudder, which makes you think that it would be a horror movie. Now, while the events of this film are horrific, this wasn't necessarily a horror film. But because of the events in this film, I don't feel like any other streaming service probably would have taken this movie on except Shudder. Like I said, because it just has some very mature subject matter attached to it. All in all, guys, I feel like this is a very solid, well-made film. The cinematography in this movie was very well done. You can also tell that the film did have a shoestring budget, but it looks great. There are some moments of really good, I would say, costume work. There are these, I'm just going to say ghost girls, okay? They're not really, but let's just call them that, ghost girls. And they're decorated, or not decorated, but they're dressed in these outfits that have Christmas tree lights on them, and then they add in a little bit of a digital effect to just kind of give them a little bit more of a ghostly, unworldly vibe. And that's kind of how this movie goes throughout the entire thing. It has this fairy tale, dreamy type of feel to it that it almost feels like this is a story that's being told back to us by a child because of the way that things are told. You know, the events are told mostly from an emotional standpoint, not necessarily from a very factual standpoint. All in all, as I said, this is a solid film. I feel like if you are a subscriber to Shudder, if this is something that interests you, if you want to see a story that tells true events, but also in a way that makes it a little bit easier to digest and get its point across to you, this is definitely a very solid film. All in all, very good watch. If you're a subscriber to Shudder, I say give this thing a shot. Alright guys, well that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.